Well, hello, guys.
Howdy.
How's it going, guys?
Crap, where's my
It's going good.
bing? There we go. Greg Burns, thank you.
You betcha. Thank you, Brian.
Look at that. What did
For
I do?
hosting and
Oh,
putting up with me and Bruce and
right.
all the shenanigans we get into.
Shenanigans. I almost switched t-shirts about 10 minutes ago just so that it would bring back the memories of a car ride.
Oh boy, little inside joke there. Oof, just believe it or not, they say what's one of those things, dress for the job that you want, or you dress for success. I would definitely say, well, let's not get into that, but sometimes the t-shirt you wear can make all the difference in the world.
Yes.
Oh man, what a fun trip it was up to Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we'll get into that story some other time.
Yeah. Bruce had a great video there that I watched today. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, I know it took a while to get that out, but I put a lot of work into that thing. It's just when you have so many different clips, it's just hard to. Some clips are 3 or 4 or 5 minutes long, and you can't do that. So you just have to figure out how to cut them and how to clip them in there and how to make it flow together. And hopefully, for those who've been able to watch it, it turned out pretty good. It was kind of fun. It was it really brought back a lot of memories of that day and of those couple of days that we were able to hang out up there in Wisconsin. It was pretty neat. So if you haven't had a chance to watch the video, even if you're not from Wisconsin, it's okay. You can still go watch the video from our experience up there. It was just a great time with you two Yahoos, and then also all the people up there in Wisconsin.
Hey, we've upgraded. We just got a promotion, Brian. We went from Jokers to Yahoos.
I will take that.
Thanks, Bruce.
Holy Moses, look at this. James, thank you so much.
That's awesome. Thanks.
Let's see here. Oh, Brian Lee joined the crowd. Kenneth, Fuzzy World, Pappy Richard. Welcome. That's awesome. James, thank you. Yeah, no, that was such a fun trip. So
sure was.
We're gonna have to maybe do something like that again around September or somewhere like that.
Yeah.
So. Well,
we need a helicopter pilot. We need someone who's a helicopter.
My son-in-law is in flight school at Fort Rucker right now. I think you could borrow a military Black Hawk and take his places. Would that be cool or what?
I tell you what, just think at a conference if there's a Black Hawk that dips on down,
or even just the training helicopter he's training in now. That thing would be pretty cool too. Just any helicopter for that matter. But
I want the black. Don't take the Black Hawk away from me.
Yeah,
I don't know, guys. I mean, I enjoy the band here, but it seems like every good band ends with a plane crash. Maybe we'll just stick to
all right,
automobiles.
That's true. Yeah. So what, Bruce? What's happening down? Wow, look at that, Lynn. Thank you. Geez, all these members.
That's Lynn. That's Lynn.
Yeah.
Yep, there she is.
That's awesome.
Welcome aboard, Lynn.
What's happening down in southeast Alabama?
Well, I've been fast and furious now for 2 or 3 months, and it's just been kind of strange. The weather, it's been a really perfect, ideal spring. I think it's rained just enough. It's been sunny just enough, and we've been in just a little bit, almost of a little pre-flow dearth type of a thing where, everything's turning green, but the flowers aren't blooming as much, but we are about to just explode. The privet has the buds, and we got clover and stuff blooming around some, but I think it's about to just explode. I've been a little bit really kind of nervous and anxious about my situation, though. I made those splits with the Hawaiian Queens with Lynn, who helped me with that. They all did great. They're doing really well. They built up into 2 deeps, like in probably 5 or 6 weeks, too strong
Wow.
more. Now some of them weren't as strong as others, but fed them like crazy. They built up, and then I got all those queen cells from just south of the line down here. It was during the she actually grafted those queen cells for me during the yellow jasmine flow, and queen cell acceptance. I went and checked on some of them this past weekend. It was 3 weeks after the fact, and the take did not look very good. And so I don't know if it was because of the yellow jasmine or what, but I'm kind of panicked a little bit because I'm trying to increase my numbers. And then I put my grafts that I did in some colonies this past weekend, and I put them in a little bit earlier than I probably should have, but I was real careful with them, and so we'll see. What I did was I split those Hawaiian into just strong splits, and I put the cells in there. And I'm just nervous about it. I guess if they don't take, I can always recombine them. Maybe they'll. I don't know. I'm just on pins and needles about it. I do still have quite a few strong colonies, but I've got to make honey this year, and I've been kind of pressing these bees for every little bit of strength that they have, and we haven't even started the honey flow yet. So I'm just, we haven't started yet. I need to just chill out a little bit, give it some time, and realize that as soon as that honey flow kicks in, man, it's just amazing how the bees just completely explode. They've been building up, fairly slowly. We've had a lot of swarming going on around here. I don't know if part of that, I don't know, Greg, what your thoughts are on this. Part of the increased swarming might be because we've had the warmer weather. The bees have built up, and now they're so packed out with bees, but with this kind of a little pullback on the flow, I don't know if they swarm to kind of protect the hive or what they do. But we are right on the cusp. The privet, I think we're going to have a good privet year, I hope, this year, barring any kind of weird weather events. I mean, the little buds, little blooms are just about, I think we're about a week or two away from just being in a wonderful situation down here. So that's where we're at. I spent a lot of time YouTube wise on this beak meat video that I did. And so got a little behind on the videos. I did film some footage of what I did this past weekend with the queen cells, and be patient with me, be nice to me. I probably did some things wrong, but I guess I'm going to put that thing together next. That's my next video I'm going to work on. I haven't even started editing that one yet, but anyway, that's where we're at down here. And I'm just kind of hoping I can start stacking super soon, hoping my bees are strong enough overall to get a nice, a nice honey flow this year, a nice honey crop, because I am out. Officially, I'm out of honey. I sold my last bottled up bottles from my self-serve thing out here in my self-serve box, I think 3 days ago, maybe. So there's the sold out sign on there. And I have a couple bottles left at work that people haven't bought yet, but I am basically out of honey. So I got to get some honey.
Wow. And everybody, I apologize for Eli. He, has little dog syndrome about 8 o'clock every night. So that's what you're hearing. We're not beating him. We're not doing anything like that. He just always decides to attack the wife this time of night. So, yeah. Mr. Burns, what is happening at Nature's Image Farm?
Well, it's the most wonderful time of the year at the farm. It's just it's. First, I'm going to thank all of our customers, all of our folks who have been supporting the farm. We had a tremendous first package run. It was sold out early on, and the first one was just this last a week ago from today. And just so many. It's so awesome to have so many folks into the shop, and it's more than just bee customers. A lot of them, it feels like it's family, and so a lot of them come just to hang out and kind of be a part of that. So that's really cool. We've got we're gearing up for we've got another run, which I think we're only got like 2 packages left on that one, and that one's sold out. And then the third run is pushing close to getting sold out as well. And then we'll be working on building nukes, and we'll start doing some trial grafts probably next week, but we can talk maybe more about that a little bit later. Everyone wants to jump the gun, it seems, and I know the feeling. We want to get the most out of a short season, but sometimes you can do some things that by trying to get ahead of the season can set you back. And if you don't know exactly what to look for, when to pause just a couple days or a week, or then when to hit the go button, sometimes it can set you back. And I can speak to that all these years of especially queen grafting. But we've had drones, walking for quite a long time. We've had purple-eyed drones way sooner than we expected. And while it seems like it might be a good idea to start grafting last week or maybe even the week before, there's a couple other things that we're looking for to make sure that not only the grafts are taken care of well and they've got the proper nutrition, but once the virgins hatch and go on their mating flight, that's actually going to happen at a good time where we've got warm days and good flight weather. And so, all of these things are based on weather, which if you've been in the Ohio Valley area as of late, it has just been a roller coaster. Last night with all the tornadoes again coming through, and a lot of folks are up late night watching the radars and things like that. I want to thank everybody who texted or messaged to kind of check in on us. Sorry we didn't get back to anybody quite yet, but it meant a lot that you thought enough to reach out to see how we were doing. But we were right in the path of some pretty severe weather, and thankfully there's nothing at the end of the day, there's nothing we can actually complain about. But it's, so you take a busy time of year, if we were to actually go back a few chats, like maybe early winter, we were calling for an El Nino. We were calling for some really goofy stuff that we were thinking was going to happen. And sure enough, this spring has just been absolutely goofy. So that's going to play into a lot of people's beekeeping this year. And I'm thinking we're going to start seeing swarms Tuesday the 9th. So just the weather's nuts. We've got snow for a couple nights coming tonight, tomorrow night.
Jeez.
And then we've got 70 degrees Tuesday the 9th. So by the time we get together next Wednesday to talk about bees, I think we're going to see an enormous amount of swarm reports. When you've got 50 and 60 degrees days and you've got a couple days in the 70s, it really seems to set things off. Especially right now, we've got a lot of dandelion is just really coming to its that early full bloom of just the clusters popping up everywhere. The dead nettle is up pretty good too. The forsythia is on its way out. Pears, peaches, cherries, everything are starting to bloom. It's full on. So it's here. So now it's time to buckle up. We've got feed on just about everything. Some of the overwinter stuff didn't really hardly need much feed, but some of the smaller ones did. We've got pollen patties going on their third round of pollen patties next week. On a lot of colonies, they're just really chewing it down. So it's busy. It's here we are. So now I feel like I'm in that place Bruce was in, 3-4 weeks ago, where he was really ramping up, and here we go. So it's here. Let's go.
If you're going to do some trial grafts next week, on Monday, could you graft at about 3:08 p.m. or somewhere around in there?
What is going on at 3:08 p.m.?
And any of them that come back mated, put like an orange ring on them. Don't put a full dot.
I see.
Eclipse queen. Did you see what I did there?
Look at that.
You could sell them as eclipse queens.
That would be cool. That would be sort of neat to do that.
See?
Yes, Brian, always thinking.
See? You would have Pepto Pink, and then you would have like Eclipse Orange.
Orange? Blaze orange.
Blazing orange queens.
Right.
Yes.
Putting a black dot on a queen wouldn't help a whole lot, would it?
Well, you could
put the orange dot and then a black dot in the middle.
Put a little black one on top of it.
Oh, wouldn't that be nice? That would be cool. Maybe I will. Maybe you might just tempt me into doing that.
Awesome. Good
How about
deal.
you, Brian? How's things going on your neck of the woods?
Like Jason said, I think I'm going to start building an ark. The weather gauge, I think in the last probably just a little over 2 days now, I think we're over 2.5 inches of rain here.
Oh my gosh.
So it's pretty wet. Just things are I think everything, like you said, is blooming up here. Now I've seen just the startings of the dandelions. So, we're still, I think we're always like a week or so behind you, 2 weeks, but I'm just starting to see those like in our yard. When I was out walking the pup earlier, I saw probably about 50 of them. So it's not like, there's just like those stragglers. We're starting to really see them come up now. That will look at that, Steve, 7 months. Wow, that'll bring up the conversation with the wife that when I let the entire strip next to the field just become a solid mass of dandelions down through the yard, that'll bring up the conversation. I need to mow the lawn, but things are progressing along. The colonies, I haven't done anything with them just because of the weather. I popped over today and I got one of those bee dars, they call it, from Broodminder. They're doing that eclipse study. So they were picking 200 people. You had to purchase the thing. It was like, I don't know, it was like $22 or I don't know, something like that. We got 2 inches of rain and a tornado last night. Bug Farmer says, oh my gosh. Yeah, I saw Georgia got hit pretty good. But they selected 200 locations and they sent out these little BDARs, and they're going to keep track of the traffic in and out of the colonies. They wanted them on, I believe, by the ending of the 4th, placed on the 5th. So that way they can monitor traffic for several days, and then traffic, there's a professor at a university that's going to put all the data together and just monitor the traffic during the event. So I got that on today, in between rain, but like it's coming down now. So just can't do anything. And then like I saw Mike and Lori, they got snow in Wisconsin. We've got that cold front coming. And when I was looking just on the hourly radar a little bit ago, I saw snow overnight. Now it won't stick, because it's going to warm back up, low 40s tomorrow. But then like next week, like Monday, I think we're 66 or so. Tuesday, I saw 70. So it's going to start getting really busy, really, really busy. But that weather, I think it'll be good. Now, as far as like I saw John and a couple people in Ohio saying they've seen swarms already. I don't think next week, to be honest, I don't think we'll see that up here. It's just, we don't have the drone population. Like my last inspection, I just saw brood. So I don't think they'll be mature enough for like the larger colonies to pump out a swarm just yet. So we're close. I mean, we are real close. So yeah. Now what would be interesting? Wouldn't you like to see a swarm about 3:05 p.m. on Monday, and then have everything go dark?
That just sounds like a bad sign. I don't know. that sounds a little too spooky.
But wouldn't that be cool though? Because I mean, they wouldn't be able to fly for, the couple minutes, wouldn't it? That would be cool to see.
I don't know. I can see you out there and it gets dark and bees start swarming and all you can hear is Creedence Clearwater Revival, Bad Moon Rising. You're talking about beekeeping in the bayou, got swamps, water everywhere. It's just, what could possibly go wrong? Be a good movie though, wouldn't it?
Exactly. Beekeeping in the bayou. I like that.
Bayou beekeeping with North Florida, Ohio beekeeper Brian Coper.
Yes.
You ever think about when these temperatures, when we have such incredible rainfall? The soil can only hold so much, and then it sheds a lot of it off. And like our driveways, I mean, it looks like it's a wreck. We live out in the middle of nowhere, gravel driveways, and on steep inclines, they just get washed out terribly. But when you think about this much moisture coming in and the temperatures going from cold enough to snow to 70s in just a few days, I don't know enough about plant biology and reserves and stores, and there's a certain aspects of plant biology that I geek out on, but it kind of makes you wonder, what affects the roller coaster temperature and the precip has overall on some of these perennial plants, how that may affect pollen or nectar. Of course, everything hinges on sunlight and moisture, but what if we get too much and then we get cold and then it's I don't think that plants are necessary. Maybe they are, but it doesn't seem like plants are just a faucet where you just turn it on and then out comes yield. Like there has to be some things in place. For us at home, 3 days of 350-degree days of soil temp, things start to pop and come alive, and they slowly start heading in that direction. But it'll be interesting to see what happens, what these flows are looking like on these early blooms with this weather being so up and down.
Yeah, I would imagine that they dilate and constrict like what our vessels do. I would imagine that they would have to.
That sounds like a University of Florida future master beekeeper talk right there, Brian.
Well, that might be partially true there, but that's dealing with trees. I would, in all honesty, I would imagine that they would. I don't know. I guess there are ways that you could study that, but yeah.
That'd be a question for Fred Dunn, wouldn't it?
That would. If the nectar flow is affected by the temperatures, that almost
moisture and temperature, because goldenrod in Ohio was prolifically bloomed, but there was no nectar. There was nothing but pollen because of, I think, of an intense dry spell that we had in that July early time period. And it kind of set things. It's like it limited it. It's like putting a governor on a go-kart. Nobody wants it there, but there it is. But anyways, just interesting geek things to think about, because it's not, a lot of folks, as they're, developing in their experience with beekeeping, is you're reactionary. You go out, you think you see this, I'm going to do that. And you're living hand to mouth with the beekeeping experience. But the more experience you get, you realize that, hey, rain that we got a month ago or 2 months ago, or rain that we didn't get, or a really bad cold snap affects plant growth that could potentially affect an entire flow altogether. Down where Bruce is at, when there are some specific crops that do come up, temperature can play into that tremendously. And like Bruce said, he's kind of banking on these splits to take, so he can increase his numbers, so he can have honey crop to get his honey reserves built back up.
Yeah. Bruce, I came into some honey the other day. The person that brought it to me said that they drove it up from Alabama. They found this box just middle of nowhere. And, so if you're missing a few jars,
Well, I have 0 in my box now. So
yeah, it's funny because I had to switch the labels out. It said something about Bruce's bees, or I don't know.
They drove a long way to carry us some honey from down here, that's for sure.
Oh man, good stuff.
Well, Brian, what are we talking about tonight?
I have no clue. I mean, when I would normally think of something, I literally, after work today, I ran over, put the bee dar on. Jason, I'm now a co-packer. Put the bee dar on the hive, came home, and I literally hit the couch and fell asleep for 2 hours. Yeah. So, yeah. So,
why don't we answer a couple of questions?
Yeah, I know. Let's know there's a question here that is from Lynn. So if people have questions, just toss them out, because my brain is fried tonight.
I'm whipped. Too. Maybe we'll answer through a Q&A, Eclipse Q&A show. Bruce, Lynn's your under your wings per se. Why don't you read the question, Bruce, and give us your thoughts?
It says, I have a serious question about my bees. I've noticed a number of dead bees on the ground in my apiary. Also noticed today some bees looking like they were having seizures and like fast muscle spasms. So, what does that sound like to you, Greg? I don't. I mean, some people have mentioned probable virus and that kind of thing. If it's an acute thing, I would think. I mean, I guess the question I have for Lynn is: are they, if you look at them closely, do they have their tongue sticking out? Or are they actually dying on the ground, or what are they doing? But what do you think, Greg? I kind of think pesticide poison or some sort, like Bug Farmer says there, but I don't know.
Anything's possible, and I think sometimes one of the easy things to point to, whether it was the culprit or not, is a pesticide poisoning. I think when you get into seeing an extended, or what's the fancy word, Brian, a distended proboscis, that doesn't necessarily mean pesticide, especially if you're autopsying a dead out when the bees are still on the comb. It can sometimes mean starvation, but I think it could be neurological things that are going on.
Okay.
What's causing that? Is it a viral thing? Is it something that they got into? It's causing that kind of neurological reaction? Could be. But I think you can also have, seeing dead bees. Like for us right now, one of the fastest ways to, uh, as your bees are coming out of winter, we're kind of past that where you guys are at. But if you're not seeing dead bees out in front of your hives on those warm winter days, then typically you've got a dead out, because that's when the main health functions of a colony is to bring out their dead, to bring out those bees, get them off the bottom board, drag them out. And so seeing fresh piles of dead bees out in front of your colony, in my mind, now I'm not talking about a 3-pound package out in front of there, but a small scattering of dead bees every day, to me, is a normal function. But with the wing muscle and the spasms, it does seem a little neurological. I can't say that if she's seeing them in the pile doing that, that's troublesome. I can't say that I've seen, usually the bees die inside the colony, hit the bottom board, and they drag them out. Sometimes it's like, like in the wintertime, those bees fly out. They don't make it very far. They die right there in the snow, it seems.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. Brian, what do you think?
I've never seen that, but like my gut reaction is leaning towards pesticide. But there's a few people
Got a
here.
comment there. Can you pull that comment up? Look at that. That could. She's got
The one from Grammy.
No. Let me pull it and see if I can. I think I can.
Which did treat
Lynn
the
said that she did treat the area with Grubex.
I don't think that would have an effect on them. Her hives are
If
off
it
the
got
ground.
wet,
Yeah,
if
I
it got
don't see
wet,
that.
maybe out in an area, and they would have to be foraging underneath of I'm assuming it's like a hive stand scenario, or.
Yeah, I don't think that's it. I've seen her set up, and I've sprinkled grub eggs all over my colonies. I've never noticed a thing from it. Supposedly it doesn't. Now here's the thing I will bring up, to kind of just segue a little bit into the grub eggs thing for hive beetles. Grobex is an entirely different chemical than the the triazidone or whatever it's called, that a
Right.
lot of people
Yeah.
use for grubs and for insects. And I've seen a lot of people saying they're using that. That is an actual insecticide, I think, for all different kinds of insects, whereas Grobex is a different chemical makeup that I don't think affects bees that much. And so I know people will use both, but I personally feel more comfortable with the Grubex than I would with the other. Just I'm not an expert in this. It's just kind of my opinion on that.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, Lynn. Are they in a big pile in front of the hive? Are they like a great big pile, or just a few bees out there kind of kicking around? That would be a question I would have, because if they're in a big pile there, just dying by the hundreds, or whatever, then I would feel more like a pesticide. I'm not that familiar with the acute paralysis, whatever that diagnosis is. I just don't, unless it's a huge die off. I don't usually worry too much about it, but that's just me. I'm not sure what to really say. I think it's definitely a great question, Lynn, and it's worth kind of doing some of the research, looking up some of the stuff that people have suggested to you there. I'm not sure what the symptoms of the paralysis of that are. Would it be a quick thing that would happen all of a sudden, Greg, if you have that virus spread by mites?
Well,
is that something that happens quickly, or is it kind of over time you see it gradually occur?
No, I mean, if you think about it, when that gets transferred, I would think it's during the pupa stage. So for a mature bee to be crawling around in that condition, you would think that's going to be a more of a latent, longer term kind of a
Yeah.
scenario, unless it's something that's somehow transmitted orally or through the colony. Then maybe those things can. Yeah, I don't know enough. I'm not sure the right way to say this, but fortunately, we've not had to deal with an enormous amount of disease to where I am so intimately aware because I've seen it firsthand. I have seen, and we talked about those nukes that we were helping a friend out with. That was a horse of a different color. But I think one thing you could potentially think about doing, Lynn, is first I would go into the brood nest and see what you're seeing there. If you're seeing bees on comb acting like that, then you've got a problem. If it's dead bees or they're out, I mean, that's still a problem. But I'd be more interested in finding out what are the colonies inside. What are the bees inside of the box looking like? And if you're suspecting, hey, it's possible they might have got into some of these kind of things, you might think about if Bruce has some DFM on hand, treating each colony with some microbials just to help get their gut kind of straightened up. Probably feeding everybody with a gallon of feed that has some thymol, like Hive Alive in it, would probably help too.
Yeah. We'll just see.
Yeah.
I don't know. I need to probably get down there and check it out, but she can send me some pictures. And
Yeah.
I think the key is if you open up the colony and everything looks pretty good, I wouldn't worry too much about it if you're not. But like you said, Greg, if you're seeing that activity going on inside the hive, it would be something to worry about possibly. So
Good stuff. This is almost like we're playing round robin because Bruce got a question, and now Greg gets a question.
Oh, Steve Amos. Steve, I hope you got the coffee mug. Hope you got that okay. Let's see. Would love tips for package installation. Steve, let's see. Steve is down. Let's see. I met Steve in person, I know, in Louisville. I'm trying to think what neck of the woods Steve is in. Well, it doesn't really matter. If you're talking about installing in the rain or with snow, you go about it one way. And then kind of for everything else, I've got two main things that we show folks on how to do. And in the learning yard, every package route that we do, when we bring the bees up, we always install on package pickup days in the learning yard to show folks exactly how to do it, like 1 o'clock and 3 o'clock on those pickup days.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the easiest ways that we have found success, not only showing folks and having them have success, but it's a nice little tool to have in your back pocket, and that's using a shaker box. So if you imagine, going through your package, of course, gently misting them with a sugar water to keep the flight down. You're going to spray your bees. You're going to knock the package down to kind of get them onto the bottom. You've already got your luon loosened. So I'll start at the beginning. Loosen the luon off. Go ahead and pop your luon off. Spray the bees down. Kind of knock them down. In the same knockdown motion, you kind of flip the package over and kind of slide the can. Will usually shoot out a little bit. Grab the can, pull the can out, gently knock the bees back down again. Reach down, grab your queen and the tether out of the package. Put your piece of luon right back on top. Put your feed can off to the side. Double check the queens running around. Everything looks good. Pull the cork from the candy side, and then go ahead and install the queen. What I like to do is, if you're installing in 5-frame nukes, if you're building up yards and you want to keep their size condensed until you put them into a bigger colony, you can. Or you can go right into your full-size 10-frame box too. Regardless, you can go ahead and put your queen. I like to, there's two ways you can do this. If you've got drawn comb, then I'll actually like to take the queen cage and kind of nestle it into the wax. And then bring the next foundation over to it with the screen facing down. Now, we don't strap or tie or tether or staple or any of that. We'll just kind of nestle that wood, a 3-hole dent cage into the wax, bring both together. And then we like to always have feed on the colony, either put a gallon frame feeder in or have a bucket feeder on top. But in this scenario, if you look down, you're looking into, let's say, a 10-frame box. Your queen's installed. I like to take an extra, like a super or an extra deep, put it right on top, and then just quickly shake the bees right inside. And we're going to use that empty shell as a funnel. It's super fast, super easy. You just quickly shake the bees using that top box as a funnel. Put the lid on and walk away. You can come back in an hour or two. You can come back the next day. And what that does, it gives the bees time to move down into those frames on their own without having to do anything. You don't have to try to put frames back on top. Now, the other way that still works great and you still can do is, and do the same thing, install the queen, same way, screen down, but only leave maybe 3 of those frames inside of that box, have the other frames pulled out, then shake your package into that void space. But now you've got to put those frames right on top of those piles of bees. You're going to squish some. They're not going to like that a little bit. It'll work fine. But the installation isn't so much challenging. But if you're installing more than one on the same hive stand or the same yard, one thing that we recommend folks do is do a timed release. So use a blue shop towel, do something so those bees can't get out for that short period of time. Check your temperatures, of course. If it's like 80 degrees, you don't want to do this. But if you're in the Midwest or Ohio and you're installing packages this time of year, using blue shop towels to completely close the entrance off is something that I think makes a lot of sense. Otherwise, you end up getting an enormous amount of bee drift from colony to colony, and you're going to spend a lot of time going back later to equalize things out. So if we close the entrances off as you're installing, then that helps those bees kind of zone in, home in on that this is our queen mama, this is our colony. There's no need for us to go try to fly out and go find a new place. What it does is it delays their orientation flights. So then if you're installing 3 or 4 or 5 packages, you just time those out a few hours apart, let one of them out, let them orient. They can only go back to their home hive. And then as you kind of stagger that, eventually that just really cuts down on a lot of drift. But one of the big health things that we always recommend is putting a pollen patty on, putting liquid feed on, and really getting them off to a good start. I could spend all night talking about packages, all the things that you could potentially do wrong. But the main thing, one of the big things that we see folks do is they'll buy a complete wax tip hive kit from us, and then they'll get their package. It's their first year, and although we've sent them links for the video, and they get into it's a go time mode, and they kind of forget the thing sometimes. They'll install a package with all the equipment, so 3 boxes, all the frames, the whole schmear, and then have a big wide open entrance. And then sometimes then install the queen with the screen. They'll staple or tether, and then that queen cage will kind of lay flat, and the screen will be up against the foundation. And that can be a real problem if they're not able to get to her, exchange mandibular pheromone, get her circulating through the colony. Sometimes you can have bees. I think one of the biggest reasons that bees abscond is they don't have access to the queen, or they've had there's dead attendants in the colony too inside of the cage, and that's kind of turning the bees off to that area. So again, if there's more specific questions about do's and don'ts on packages, leave some comments. Otherwise, I can ramble on all night about that.
Steve, I'll say too, if you go on to Greg's channel, he has some videos on package install. So I know the one I watched of yours, it's probably 3 years old.
I don't even, yeah.
Yeah, it's been a little while ago. Yeah. Grayson has a good question here. Any of you know if the solar eclipse will have any effect on the bees?
Bruce, what do you think?
What do you think, Bruce?
I have no idea. I don't know. Maybe it does briefly when it's actually occurring, but I don't know if it have any long-term effect at all. But I don't know. That's a great question, Grayson.
Brian, what do you think?
So because of where I'm at, I looked this up just because I was curious. And there's pretty much, from what I've read, they will treat it like it is time to go home. It's the evening time, sun's going down, it's time to go home. If they're stuck on a flower or somewhere like that, they will just, they'll stay there for the however long that totality period lasts.
Interesting.
And it really has no like ill effect on them. It just kind of puts them into this, they're in their active portion in the day, and they just treat it like those that are close, they'll try and return home. And that's pretty much what I've seen. So now, like
I'm not thinking we're going to see a big deal. I don't, the big, where we saw big changes in their behavior was when the Canadians were setting everything on fire, it seemed, and all that smoke was coming down through, and it created just like this upper atmospheric haze, and then the sun was like blood orange, and when it would come out, and just there was something about that that they weren't able to, if they're using the sun to orient themselves and plants and communicate, when that's disrupted, I think that can maybe cause some problems for them. So in this case, it would almost just be like, I guess it would be like night came really quick, or it's different than a storm because I'm not a meteorologist. Although, can you imagine getting paid to be a meteorologist and being right 10% of the time? Wouldn't that be nice? That'd be a nice gig. Anyways,
exactly.
It's different with a storm. You've got moisture and precipitation and barometric pressure, and those things that are building up. And I think the bees and animal livestock definitely pick up on that. Horses, cows, they pick up on that as it's getting into those modes. Whereas an eclipse is, I mean, Brian, it's going to be all of what, 45 seconds maybe, with that, the whole thing.
Well, so up here we've got a minute and like 40 or a minute and 50 seconds. Up closer, like the why this eclipse has a lot of people talking is it's going to be in certain areas the time frame of totality will be the longest in I don't know how many years, but like there's some areas that are going to have 4 minutes of totality. So, and that's a heck of a long time. Like up towards Cleveland, they've got 3 minutes and like I forget how many seconds, but I mean that's a considerable amount of time for it to go dark. But Tim here has a good point. Last solar eclipse, mine started bearding as bees came home, but none was leaving. Yeah, really cool. And I mean that would make sense. They're going to think, hey, it's the middle of the daytime. They're going to go in, exchange off their nectar, dump off their pollen, whatever they have, go back out on a flight, and they're like, hang on one second. So that does make a lot of sense right there too. I wonder if you will see on the larger colonies like an excessive amount of bearding. Yeah,
I think you're going to see a bunch of bees that are just caught. They're getting caught. They're caught out in the field when that happens, and so you're going to see, some not really animated stages, but I think you're going to see, bees almost going semi-dormant during that dark spell, wherever they're at doing their thing. But it's also kind of cool to think, maybe there's more, so many things are affected obviously by lunar and solar cycles. Just because we can't see something doesn't mean there isn't some other effect. Stan Gore, thank you for that huge super chat.
Jeez, oh man.
More light shining money. Stan's the man. Him and his wife Bev, they're awesome. I love seeing their posts. Yeah.
Great folks.
But,
great folks.
Yeah. And it'd be cool to see what happens. Even if you did catch something on video, I don't know that I think that there's things going on that we won't be able to see or understand that the bees pick up on, and then so if we see something to try to translate that is going to be the fun thing. And if folks really want to go down a rabbit hole, do some Google foo on how bees find plants and what that actually looks like to them. Once you do that and see, oh my gosh, they're how are they able to find all these plants and know these are the ones that are prime picking in this moment? Well, I think that there is some things that the lunar and solar cycles could play into. So we may have some weird goofiness. I don't know. It'd be cool. Who knows? But Brian will have a brood minder in his hive and be able to track all kinds of normalities or abnormalities. Or
That right there would be a good. That'd be an interesting view there.
Yeah.
Use an endoscope, but I'm driving. I won't be in my apiary that day. I'm actually driving up towards Lake Erie because they're going to have 3+ minutes of totality. So a 1 hour drive, and it's going to add like 2 minutes of time. So I just thought it'd be something fun for the wife and I to do. So
what if it reverses bee behavior and all of Bruce's bees turn nice and all of Brian and I's bees turn mean? We have to wait 75 years to get it flipped back around again.
Oh.
Bad
And
news.
his Ozark yard.
There's a bad moon rising.
Yeah. Ozark would be at the top. That'd be the top of the top then.
If there's any bees left up there. There's not very many bees left up in Ozark, unfortunately.
Oh my.
Well, or fortunately, I guess.
Yeah. This next question here from Rainier is for you two gentlemen, because I tend to not do this. Have you guys introduced cells?
Bruce, you go first.
Well, if you say by how do you introduce them, if you mean just the process of introducing, basically, I used to just put the cells, without any type of protector in there, and just kind of either, if it's warm weather, just drop them down between two top bars. It's a little bit cooler weather, or a little iffy on the weather, I'll go ahead and put it down in the brood and just kind of push it into the brood a little bit. The last couple of years, I've used cell protectors, those orange cell protectors. Put those in, and frankly, my acceptance rate, I think, may have been a little better before I used the cell protectors. I don't know. I've introduced several cells, quite a few cells this year. My first original cells that I introduced was not a good take. I'm kind of panicking a little bit about that. That doesn't make me happy. I don't know if there's something wrong with the cells. I don't know that there was. I know those cells were created. They were grafted during a yellow jasmine moment in our spring here. So I don't know if that had an effect on them or not. Normally the cells from this particular queen breeder are good cells. And so they looked healthy. They were big and they looked nice, but a lot of them just haven't taken, or they didn't get mated and come back. So I don't know what the deal is. But that's how as far as introducing the cells, that's what I do. And there's all different kinds of different ways to make splits. That's a whole different conversation. But Greg, what do you think, man?
We could have a whole night on queen cells, but
and I need some education on it for sure, because I'm just trying to get started on this thing.
I am looking forward to at some point this season doing a live chat with Rainier. Maybe we can talk a little bit more about that. But with queen cells, queen cells are by far the dominant approach. It's a much better, 100 times better than full virgin queens, in my opinion. And they're way easier than introducing even mated queens. The queen cells are like this hidden little gem, this little opportunity where it's like there's a buffer built into there, where if you're going through and you're pulling queens, you can go through, like in your mating noops, you can pull queens and drop a queen cell in that same moment that you got the lid off, drop a queen cell, and the bees don't really think anything of it quite yet. Soonly after you pull the queen, they realize, hey, we're queenless. And then as they start going into, okay, let's do something about this mode, it's almost like, oh, and by the way, here, we already have queen cells. So by the time that they would go to even start making queen cells, you've got a queen cell that's hatching like the next day or even day of. And so that's really handy to get ahead of. Sometimes you have colonies that are having trouble requeening, or they're doing this or doing that. Having the virgin hatch out inside the colony trumps trying to introduce a virgin to the colony. And so there's a lot of different ways that we go about doing that, using cell protectors like Bruce mentioned, especially if you've got colonies that are having trouble accepting queens or cells. A cell protector is nice because it prevents them from chewing it down quite so bad. And some of the cell protectors are nice because it gives you a kind of a place to, by using the forks of the queen cell, you can jab those into the side of the foundation, and a nice sturdy place to set the cell, and then put your frames back together. But we've gone and we've dropped them, at the top of bars into foundation. We've just, we've cut queen cells off a plastic foundation and drop them anyway too. Lots of different ways. Maybe we'll talk more about that, but queen cells, I think, are an extremely valuable tool that I think everyone should get a little more practice with, because it can really make or break the success of a bee yard. Is if you're able to not only make queens for yourself, but get a queenless colony queen right is a big difference. And his follow-up question here, Bruce, is how do you prepare the splits to add the cells? Bruce, I know you've done splits about a bazillion different ways, and you probably have a preference at this point on how you prepare the splits?
I thought I knew what I was doing until last year and this year, and now it seems like nothing seems to work very well, so I don't know. I kind of prepare them. What I've done historically is just give them a few hours, preferably overnight, and then introduce the cells the next day. That's kind of been my method of choice, and so that's what I've typically done. Now, last year when I introduced the virgins from Corey Stevens, I waited, I think it was a week or 8 days, and broke down all the queen cells I had, when I broke out the splits and then introduced the virgins in their cages. They chewed through, and they had a really good acceptance rate. And so I tried doing that with cells last year, and it didn't work. And then mated queens I'll put in just like a day or two later, and they seem to do well. This year I had tremendous success with the mated queens I introduced early. So I don't know. I think there's a combination with cells. Number one is if the split's prepared properly. I don't know. Maybe I just prepared them a little bit wrong. I'm not sure. I use the same method I've used in the past with good success. I think 2 years ago, I did basically the same thing I did this year and had tremendous success. And this year, not as good. I think also the quality of the cells, when the cells are made, the weather, so many different variables. Mm-hmm. And anytime you're doing stuff early in the year, it's a higher risk, I believe, than if it's in a flow, either early in the year or after the flow. I think when you do things in the middle of a flow, your acceptance rate and your success rate is much greater. And so it's kind of risky, to do it when the weather is going to be temperamental or changing, whether it be rain or cold or too much heat or dearth or whatever. So that's kind of, as far as preparing splits, I've done it in everything from a 2-frame nuke all the way up to a full size 10-frame, and I've had success. I've also had failure. So I don't know, man. I'm trying to figure it out. I thought I kind of knew what I was doing, and then the last couple of years so far, I've struggled with the cells a little bit. But we'll see how my cells that I grafted did. I hope they do well. I would like to show you something, though, that I received a package, and this is I guess it's kind of a new product. Robert Peebles, I think he's maybe out of Texas. I'm not sure, but he sent me a package with some pretty cool little cages. The website is RP Beeworks, for, I guess, Robert Peebles Beeworks.com. And these are some little cages right here that you can just put over queen cells that are actually existing. Like you say, you pull out
it's slick.
Like Greg mentions, you can stimulate a hive to form cells. You crowd them, you stimulate them. If it has like 5 or 6 or 7 cells, whatever, on that frame, you can just put these little cages over the brood where that cell is. You keep that cell protected, and possibly catch the queen if she emerges in there. So it's little queen cages stick right to the brood. Then he also has this little introduction cage that he's created, for those who want to use this as an introduction cage, to introduce your queens. That's another cage he has. And he also has a little small robbing screen thing. So it's pretty cool. He sent this to me. I'm going to maybe try some of this out if I see the opportunity to, but it's pretty ingenious. I like it. And he is selling them on his website. He just sent these to me. I didn't have any idea what he was going to send me, but he said he wanted to send me something. So Brian, I don't know if you got one of those packages or not, or Greg, but I just thought I'd show that to you tonight. If anybody's interested in taking a look at it, it's kind of a neat little concept. And I think he's pretty excited about it. It's just another beekeeper that's come up with a pretty neat idea. So I thought I'd share that with you. But Greg, what do you think about preparing your splits for your cells?
Well, splits, I think you go about building that a certain way if you're making splits, and you do that a certain way if you're making queen
Queens.
nukes.
Okay.
Yeah. One of the pitfalls that I see some folks kind of get caught up in is they don't have the right age group of bees in a box, where they will, it's true and it's easy, but if you have an entire box of nothing but nurse bees that you're adding a cell to, that might sound great, but if the hive isn't squared away on young bee nutrition, it really sets them back and sets that soon-to-be queen back from, it feels like, starting that laying process, because until the hive has enough bees that have matured enough to be forager and have actually gone and foraged and brought it back and stored, we say it a lot, and I sometimes probably get in trouble. I got to be careful probably how I say it, but um, it seems like bee colonies and queen mothers sometimes are more responsible than other animals. And so if they don't have incoming food or storage, they don't go to town wasting the energy and effort on laying a bunch of eggs or making a bunch of babies they can't feed. So one thing that I like to do is, it's not really even that complicated, but one of the easiest things to do is you start with the areas that you can go through, and you can bust everything down. You can go to your main colonies that you've earmarked for splits, and you can simply pull a nuke out of there, a small nuke with the existing parent mother queen, and you can move her just a couple box spaces over if you want, or just a box space over, and then let everybody go queenless. Go through and knock down all your queen cells. Give it 3 to 5 days later, and knock down their hope of queen cells. At that point in time, you can absolutely humble that colony and split it out as many ways that you can. But minimum, I like to keep 3 frames of material in there if I can. 3 frames of bees. We can get by with a handful of bees and a 1 queen cell, but there is a tremendous amount of risk that follows with that, especially when you're talking about that being on full size frames where there's wax and there's proteins. If that doesn't go, or if she doesn't hatch, or if she doesn't come back, and you're not in there frequently enough, you end up wasting 2 to 5 frames of material that could be harboring hive beetles and become a bigger liability than it is an asset. So making something strong enough that it can stand on its own, but having a little more of a diverse age group in there is helpful during a flow, because they're going to be gathering everything out ahead of that queen cell hatching. Now, if you're in a dearth period and things like that, and you've got hangry, mature bees inside of that split, that can sometimes be challenging on what they're going to do to those cells, their acceptance rate. But that's where cell protectors come in. When in doubt, just put them into a cell protector, put a couple of them in, and let it roll. But we can talk a lot more about that. There's so many different ways to go about doing it. But the main pitfall is, you want bees that are well fed, that you want them to be healthy. But the easiest thing to do is just pull the queen out of the box you want to bust everything down from, and then go through and just humble them, split the tar out of them, and then drop all your cells. That saves you from having to go through every single colony to hunt and peck a frame of brood here or a frame of food here. Earmark the big ones, to do just that, because they're going to have sheets of sealed brood. They're going to have food, a couple of drone combs, and some fresh foundation. I think you're squared away pretty good.
Yeah.
Which one to pick? Which one?
I can't wait to start talking about splits this year, because there's so many ways to do it.
I had a question for you, Greg. Suggestion, if, like in my case where I split a bunch of hives out, I have quite a few that are queenless, I think, right now. Can you just combine those bees back with colonies and just kind of rebuild their strength? Can you just put the queenless bees back on a strong colony that has a good queen in it and just rock and roll with it? Or do you need to introduce them in some sort of way?
Well, I guess it's yes or no. You can get by with a whole lot in the right time of year, and you can't get by with anything at the wrong time of year. If there's food coming in, things like that, you could probably get by doing it. For me, what I do is I don't do a lot of combining queenless colonies with queen right colonies. I'll combine all my queenless colonies and then drop a cell or a queen into those ones and get those ones off to a start.
Okay.
That's
Do
primarily
you
the
add
approach that we take.
do you add brood when you do that, a frame or two of brood, just to keep them? Because don't you need to have some young bees in the colony?
It does, and there's something about having, especially if you can find like a sheet or a frame that has nearly a whole sheet of emerging, but if there is some just getting ready to cap, they can't do anything with it to make it a queen, but there's something about the presence of that frame in there that just kind of, I mean, you can, before you add it, sometimes it can be grumpy, right? And then shortly after adding some brood to that scenario, there's something settling about that I think makes a big difference.
Good. Okay. I'm just trying to figure out what to do with all these colonies that are queenless right now.
The main thing you got to think about is the lifespan, of the honeybees.
I know that's what I'm
let
worried
these
about.
colonies get too far out with no
Yeah, I know.
brood, they're going to be grumpy forager bees that even by the time you get a queen in there, they can still crash because there's not a population.
That's what I'm worried about. We're this Saturday. We're right on the verge. It's been about a little over 3 weeks since I introduced the cells. Now, when I made the splits, they all had brood, and they were all pretty, decent sized splits with brood in them. So there are some reasonably young bees, but there's really not any brood in them. I mean, most of that brood has emerged, and so there are just some queenless colonies now that are they need some place to go, or else they're just going to die.
Right. Well, they're dying regardless, but let's get something on there so you're not losing your frames and everything else.
Yeah. Oh, let's see here. That's a good one. You can do that so many different ways.
Sorry, I wasn't reading there. How should I make nukes from a big double deep if I do not have an out yard? That's a great question because a lot of folks don't have out yards they can move bees to or from, and they're making their splits all in the same yards. Brian, what do you do?
I've never set up nukes, and I'm very conservative when I do my splits. I'm very, very conservative because I don't want to have I don't want my splitting that colony to have an effect on the honey crop that colony would potentially produce. So I'm very conservative. What I always do though is, and this is for setting up nukes, I always move my older queen over with 2 or so frames of brood, a good solid, frame of food, make sure they've got some honey, some pollen on it. And I mean, I guess it's almost like setting up a nuke because then they've got frames that they can work on also. But I'm very conservative with those splits, and that tends to work out really well for me. You move them over, that queen, she kind of gets tricked, thinks that she swarmed, and then, the original colony, I typically will move them and the timing, you got to be about spot on, because if you wait too long, it's going to be too long and they're going to be dead set to swarm. But if you time it out right, you can move that queen so she does not swarm, and that colony is already developing some cells, so that they just basically requeen themselves. That's usually what I do. I'm like as far as the 3 of us here, I don't drop cells. I don't typically drop in virgins. Last year was the first time I ever messed with virgins. I'm like the most inexperienced here when it deals with setting up nukes and things like that. So, Bruce, what do you
do, Bruce?
So the question is, how should I make nukes from big double deep if I do not have an out yard? You can set up nukes in your exact same bee yard just right next to that colony, actually. But just remember, the foragers are all going to go back home. And so, and it's actually not a bad idea, especially I think if you're going to have, at least in my experience, if you're going to have a mated queen, or I guess it will work with cells too. Greg, you addressed that a little bit here, but the bees are staying behind. The bees are going with the new nuke and staying in the new nuke are going to be your nurse bees. And so they will help accept that new a queen. You just, like Greg always says, and it's very important, you probably want to make sure they have plenty of food in there. In a flow, you might be okay if, especially put food, but you want to feed them. They got to have food. It's best if they have some food in there to be able to accept that queen. But you can set them, like you could break that thing into 3 or 4 splits, pull the nukes off with a couple of good frames of brood and a frame of food, and an empty frame or two. And during a good time of the year, you can do that. Set them right there in the same bee yard. And like I say, now the original colony is going to still have quite a few bees that are going to come back to it. But the other nukes that go out there, they may look they're going to be weaker than they were when you first pulled them, but there should be, as long as they got a couple of good frames of brood, they should be fine and shouldn't be a problem at all, at least in my experience. I do some splits where I move the nukes or the new splits away if I want to take the foragers with me, but a lot of splits I make are in the same yard. If I don't have time to move them somewhere else, I just do them right there in the same bee yard, and I've had a lot of success doing that over the years. Just remember, your nukes are going to be weaker than you thought they were going to be, and your original colony is going to be a little stronger than you thought it was going to be. So you need to make sure, say you have a double deep, I think you would need to leave at least one deep box there to accept the bees coming back. And then the two or three nukes you break off, will just need to be in regular nukes. So what do you think, Greg? That's kind of been my experience in that. May want to just pull 2 splits off, and then leave the 10 frames back behind in the original location. Another question with that is, where do you put the queen? Do you take her away or do you leave her in the original spot? That's another good question that could be answered with this, I think.
I think it depends on what one of the things that we all have to kind of figure out is, okay, what can I hate to say it like this, what can I get by with? Like, what size split can I make and it be successful and take, and then it takes, and then it actually grows into the size of a colony that we need to do, and then you fill in your blank. The thing about double deeps is you're pulling from such a huge possibilities there, that what I like to do in that scenario is you could nearly do a no-look split, where you could take a double screen board and just put it right between both boxes with the entrance facing out the back, and come back 3 to 5 days later and see which box is the queen in and which one isn't. That can help cut down some time a little bit if you actually have to find the queen. Once you find that, just move the box the queen's in to a new location, and then that other box there's no queen in, you could drop a cell, start introducing a queen. But what I like to do is, because we're making nukes and queens, I'm looking at every single colony as how many resources are available within this, and I'm looking at it from a frame perspective, frames of brood and food, and so we were going, and I don't want to confuse it by, if we're taking splits out to an out yard, that's going to look different, because we're going to tear through a bunch of colonies, try to find the queen, split things out, and we're going to go through all the colonies to make up the 2 frames of brood, 2 frames of food, and a fresh foundation, and we'll make that as many cycles as we can, using all of the colonies to do it. But in the same yard, what I like to do, what we've had tremendous success in the past, is if you can find the queen, whether it's through a double screen board first and you come back, or if you can find the queen, move her and make a small nuke with her and put her in a new location in the yard, leave everything else there put for the time being, let them try to make the queen cells. And if you don't, if you're, and I'm not a big fan of walkaway splits, just because you lose so much time, and time is something we don't have in Ohio. So if you're going to do the splits, it's cool to do one occasionally so you can get really familiar with the life cycle and the timing and things like that. But from a production standpoint, that's about the worst thing you can do, is a walkaway split, because of how much time it actually takes for them to decide to start making a queen, for it to mature enough to where it hatches, and then for her to go on her mating flight, come back and start laying eggs, and then for those eggs to be mature enough to develop into pupa, to then hatch you're talking a significant amount of time that if your split isn't made strong enough, there's nothing left, or they get robbed out, or there's hive beetles. So, like Bruce said, I always lean on making the splits a little too heavy, and that might look like shaking 2 or 3 extra frames of bees into that from sealed brood. I don't shake. I try not to shake from open brood, but from sealed brood, I don't care at all. I'll go through and shake all the bees off of sealed brood frames, because they're mostly going to be that younger age bee, and it helps boost those populations. But once you know the queen's out of the picture, you got this beautiful canvas of resources that you can start pulling from all those and see how many splits can I make from that. And I would have no problem once they're humbled and they know they've got no queen, and they've got no future hope. Then you can split them out right there on the spot, drop queen cells. And if you're using 5 frame boxes or gesture boxes, and the weather cooperates and they're not in the blistering sun, if you can close them up and keep them in the shade for a couple days, or at least 24 hours, especially while a queen cell is hatching, you have tremendous take rates.
Mm-hmm. Good stuff. There's a lot of good questions in here. It's making me wish we had the time.
It's an hour and 15 minutes already, fellas.
I know.
We'll take a couple more questions, and then we'll maybe have a Q&A show next week.
Oh man.
That.
There's a couple.
I would like to say though, before we move on, I see a lot of names in here of people I haven't necessarily seen before. Maybe I've just missed them, but I think we got some new folks checking in, and we really appreciate you guys. I hate to recognize, there's no way we can recognize everybody, but we do appreciate everyone for checking in here. We got a good crowd on here tonight with 181 or so folks watching, and just a lot of names that I think maybe I'm seeing it for the first time. So we just really appreciate all who are longtime watchers and listeners, and those who may be joining us for the first time. We hope you'll continue to visit us on Wednesday nights here at the Stream Team.
Mm-hmm. Here's one that I've had this situation twice before. Bruce, thank you, buddy.
Yes, sir.
How about a laying worker situation? I have had a laying worker myself twice. One time I messed with it just so that I could mess with it and correct it. And it was a learning experience. And other than that, I don't even mess with them. But Bruce, have you dealt with laying workers?
What I've done in the past is just shake them on the ground, take them a little ways off and shake them on the ground. And, the worker bees that are not the laying workers will find their way back either into colonies that are viable, and then the ones that are not able to won't make it back. And that's fixed my problem. I've heard of people just dropping laying workers, setting them on top of other colonies, really strong colonies, and just letting them figure it out. I've done that some, and I think it's worked okay, but I typically have shake them out. I've never had a lot of issue with that until, once again, the past couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
And last year I just had a ton. Well, I don't know if they were laying workers or drone layers for queens that didn't get mated. I'm not sure what they were, but I just had a tremendous problem with that kind of stuff last year. Right about the time you think you haven't seen something, or you say that's not a problem I have to deal with, it just comes and haunts you. And last year was just a rough year. I had a lot of that kind of stuff happen to me last year. So I'm really not sure what the best solution is, but I found probably just shaking them a little ways off. That seems to work, as good as anything. But I don't know, Greg, what do you do with laying workers?
When in doubt, shake them out. We don't even play around anymore. We've spent so much time trying, and by the time the thing you got to think about is, by the time that they're in a laying worker situation, you are so far removed from having nurse bees in that colony that by the time you try to write it with a queen cell or introduce a mated queen or a virgin queen, you just lost 10 days again for the most part. So what we do is, when we see that situation, I don't even move them very far. I'll take the box. If it's like a 4-way pallet, I'll just crack the box off the 4-way, kind of tilt it up sideways, and yank the frames out, shake everything right onto the ground, and then I won't even put that box back. I'll just put the box of resources that are left after we shake the bees off. I'll just take that box. There's always somebody who needs a little something and needs a few more extra frames. I'll just take that box with all the bees shooken out of it, put that on a strong colony, and every single time, you know what's happened? the bees figure it out. All the bees find new homes, and whoever were laying workers, if they, I assume if they flew into a neighboring colony and tried that nonsense in there, you know, their days on Earth were short lived. Because what I've never seen is have a laying worker situation and you shake it out, and then find a laying worker situation somewhere else that popped up in a hive that was queen right. There's some things that have to happen inside the colony for them to start that. So yeah, when in doubt, just shake them out. It sounds horrible, but you're not losing any bees. Bees are like, you know, bees are kind of like, they're passive, uh, passive producers, right? And they're producing a crop, which is all the things that are on the comb. So you might think you're setting yourself back by shaking them out because you think you're losing a colony. And truth be told, a lot of that is pride and ego, thinking, oh, well, I've got to have 5 colonies, and if I shake this one out, I'm only going to have 4. I don't want to lose a colony and not try to save the laying worker. But the fact of the matter is, they're not queen right. So they're already in my mind, they're
dead.
done and
They're
dead.
And I look at it as, you know, those bees, they're designed to contribute to a colony, and if they just fizzle out and die in a weak colony, they're not able to fulfill their mission. So if you shake them out, they go in another colony, they help strengthen that colony, then to me that's a win-win for both you and the bees and the new colony.
Yep.
You know, but yeah, do you shake them out just right there, or do you take them off a little ways?
Yep, right out in front, because all those bees, you know, the bees populate other boxes, which make those colonies stronger, and then the resources that were left inside of that colony go on to another. I'll just take that box. Who needs a box today? Oh, they need a box. Okay, cool. There you go. They now have a box of whatever that it is ready to go, and they can put those resources to use.
Yeah. The one time that I messed with that situation, it was about the time frame that Hansberry honeybees here, 5 weeks. It literally was weeks, because you have to get, you know, there's no brood pheromone in there, so the workers will develop out their ovaries, and you have to get the right pheromones in there to shrink down their ovaries, and you can't just plop a queen in there because they will annihilate her in a heartbeat. And it probably took me a month and a half of fiddling with that darn hive, and it ended up queen right, but you figure just lost a month and a half.
To what? Yeah, to what? Just to say it's queen right, and now what? What are they going to do? That they're not worth a hill of beans at that point.
Yep. Yeah. But hour and 20 minutes, gentlemen. We need to continue the queue. And wow, look at this. Steve gifted 10 memberships. Jeez, I mean, that membership gifting is crazy. Steve, you are awesome.
Yeah, you guys are great. Hey, I want to thank Randy Reed, Trails In Farms. I haven't got to see him a whole lot over the last couple years, but he sent a text I saw this morning. He sent a text last night checking in, giving us a heads up that and I really appreciate it. I saw it this morning, but he texted it to say that storms with rotation heading your way. So he must be a little west of me. So just giving me a heads up last night. So okay. Randy, we appreciate you. Thanks for thinking of us.
Yeah. Who's we're on who? Bruce's next week? Excellent.
Yep. We'll try to really focus on some Q&A next week. So come with your questions. I'm not going to guarantee we can answer everybody's questions, but think of some questions that we can address, and we'll talk bees and do what we usually do. But maybe we'll set aside a little more time to actually do some Q&A type stuff and roll from there. And I would also like to say that I don't know, within my next stream team video, not this week time, but maybe the next one or the following one on my channel, we'll be right at that 25K mark. And so we're going to do some really nice giveaways when that happens.
Wow.
And so we get me there, and we'll, it'll be within a chat on Bruce's Bees or 2, and we'll do that video. And I've got 2 or 3 really nice things lined up with maybe a couple more smaller things in between. So be looking forward to that one. And I just really appreciate all the support. We all appreciate your support, folks on the stream team and on our individual channels. And And when I was putting that video together today, finishing it up over the past few days and uploading that thing, and when I went back and watched it for the conference up in Wisconsin, you just realize what an incredible community this is.
Yeah.
What I found is that the general beekeeping population. Now there are people in every business that are, a little bit, I'm not going to say it, but overall, the beekeeping community is just so phenomenal, especially the folks we have in this community right here with Stream Team and with the folks dealing with the Bee Expo and Cayman's, kind of that movement that he kind of got started with that conference. And it's just, I watched that video and it just feels like family. I mean, we went all the way to Wisconsin and you felt like you're walking into a family reunion. It was just so neat, wasn't it, fellas? I mean, just a great thing. And I hope if you watch that video, you can sense that it was just a good time and there was no awkwardness, nothing that felt out of place. It was just, we just had a really good time. Kind of just, it's like you walk into a big reunion and everybody kind of just got along, and it seemed like it was just an incredible experience. And the folks up there in Wisconsin just did a phenomenal job with that conference. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, they're all good people. Yeah,
sure are.
Yeah. Oh.
Hey, Tom from Small Scale Life. Yeah, great community, the Wausau Conference. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Greg, what's happening in the next week at Nature's Image Farm?
Well, we've got another package pickup date coming up this Saturday. That one's, I'm sure by the time we get off tonight, will be sold out. If you're looking for packaged bees in the Ohio area, we still got the April 26th pickup available. Of course, those bees we bring up from Georgia. Our nukes that we make from our own stock, grafted from our own queen line here. Those nukes are going to be available late May, early June, depending on what the weather is going to do. So if you're interested in nukes from our genetic line or packages that we bring up from Georgia, those will be available late April. We're sold out on queens now through July. We hope to have extras every single week and make those available to folks that are on the list. But it's just everything's ramping up. The business is growing. We've been busy with our Enduro Hive wax dip line of equipment, getting things built and dipped and shipped out. So it's just it's a busy time of year, and we're just so thankful for everyone in this community that's supporting our large family small business. Without you guys, we wouldn't be here. You guys have been good to us. God's been good to us and has blessed our business and I think this community. And so we just, from all of us here from Nature's Image Farm, we just want to say thanks. Next Wednesday, we'll be on the Bruce's Bees YouTube channel. And we're going to probably talk about Q&A and all kind of fun stuff there. And so we look forward to seeing what questions you guys have next week. And, a lot happens, in a week, guys. With weather and bees, you go from is spring here to okay, spring, slow down in a real short period of time. We're going to be full on queen grafting here very shortly, and when that happens, it's on like Donkey Kong, as the kids say. But anyways, for everyone tuning in tonight to the Stream Team Beekeeping Chat, hey, we want to thank you for your support, for being here with us tonight. Bruce, Brian, looking forward to seeing you next Wednesday night on the Bruce's Bees YouTube channel. And until then, we want to remind you to be the lighthouse and be the change you want to see in this world. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.